All right. So what do you see in the graphic on page 317? What is that of? Yeah, Sarah.
I think it's a plebeian and a patrician.
Good. Why do you think that?
Because this is what we were talking about yesterday, and one is wearing like fancy clothes, and one is wearing like, I don't know, tags, like not very fancy, and it looks like they're both holding money, and they're about to put it on the balance.
Good. So it looks like they're both holding something, and one's dressed fancy, the one in the white, right? And the toga, which is like a customary dress for Romans, and then someone who doesn't look as nice. So this probably is a pleb. Good. So what's the device between the two figures? What is this device here? What is that? Yes, Wilson. Scale. Good. Excellent. It's a scale. So what happens when you place weight on one of the two pans? Which one will go down? With the one with the weight on it will go down. One with more weight will start to go down. More weight and it'll go down until you weigh things. This is a scale. Good. So please open, you're already on page 317. Open your workbooks to page 226 as well. So we're going to start reading this chapter. And then as we read this chapter, we're going to learn about the history of the relationship between the patricians and the plebeians as well. And I'll point out about how yesterday's activity relates to the history of the relationship between each other, the plebeians and the patricians. So 226, just to have it ready for when after we start reading. Alright, so please put your finger on introduction, 33.1, introduction. For 317, I'm going to start reading. I just wanted you to open your workbook so you have it ready so we can fill it out. So, the rise of the Roman Republic, 33.1, introduction. In the last chapter, you learned about Etruscan and Greek influences on Rome. Early Rome was ruled by Etruscan kings from northern Italy. In this chapter, you'll learn how the Romans overthrew the Etruscans and created a republic around 509 BCE. A republic is a form of government with elected leaders. So what's one government in the world today that is a republic? Anyone know a republic? Yeah, Evan. California? Our government. California's government is a republic. Good. So is the United States as a whole. But so is our state government is a republic. We elect a legislature. Good.
Wait, isn't Republican like a born with like
Oh, that is a Republican Party, yes. And then there's a Democratic Party. But there's also democracy and Republican. Or republic. And we are a republic. We're like a democratic republic. Republics are democratic.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Yeah, I can see how it's strange. So ancient Romans told an interesting story about the overthrow of their Etruscan masters. One day, two Etruscan princes went to see the famous oracle at Delphi in Greece. A Roman named Lucius Brutus traveled with them. At Delphi, the princes asked the oracle which of them would be the next king of Rome. The oracle answered, "The next man to have authority in Rome will be the man who first kisses his mother. Hearing these words, Brutus pretended to trip. He fell on his face, and his lips touched the earth, the mother of all living things. Back in Rome, Brutus led a revolt that drove out the Etruscan kings. He became one of the first leaders of the new republic. In this way, the oracle's mysterious words came true. The Romans, now free to govern themselves, were now free to govern themselves. But not all Romans were equal. Power in the early republic belonged to rich men called patricians. The majority of Romans, the plebeians, had no say in the government. In this chapter, you will see how a long struggle between patricians and plebeians shaped the government of Rome. So Brutus, does that name sound familiar to anyone? Anyone know another Brutus? Yeah. He was one of the patricians who murdered Julius Caesar. Right. So this is his ancestor. Brutus was a very famous family in ancient Rome, patrician family. Yeah. Good. All right. So let's turn the page. 33.2, patricians and plebeians under the Etruscan rule. All right, so there are 3 paragraphs. Who'd like to read? No one? 1, Alida, and then Michaela. So Anthony, Alida, and Michaela. So 33.2, patricians and plebeians under Etruscan rule.
Roman society was divided into 2 classes, patricians and plebeians.
And plebeians, good.
Upper-class citizens called patricians came from a small group of wealthy landowners. Patricians comes from the Latin word patres, which means father. The patricians chose the fathers of the state, the men who advised the Etruscan king. Patricians controlled the most valuable land. They also held the important military and religious offices.
Lower class citizens, called plebeians, were mostly peasants, laborers, craftspeople, and shopkeepers. The word plebeians comes from plebs, which means many. Plebeians made up about 95% of Rome's population. They could not be priests or government officials. They had little say in the government, yet they were still forced to serve in the army.
Good. So they were forced to serve in the army, the plebeians. Good. So, what percentage of Rome's population were plebeians? Cameron. 95% were plebeians. Remember yesterday when I broke up the class between patricians and plebeians, that it wasn't that figure exactly, but there are many more plebeians than there were patricians, right? There's a patrician from every group. So about 6 patricians. But 95% of Rome's population were plebeians. And did they have any say in the government? Yeah.
They had little say. It wasn't zero, but didn't have.
They didn't really have any say, right? It's just very little. They could influence maybe the patricians, right? But they had very little say. So, so who advised the Etruscan king? Who were the advisors to the Etruscan king under Etruscan rule? Alida.
The patricians in the state.
The patricians were, so they had the power in Rome. Besides the Etruscan king, the patricians were representatives who give advice to the Etruscan king. Good. So, let's start on 33.2. I'll go over the directions. On 226. All right. So here we go. Let's read the top. These sections 33.2 to 33.5, which we're doing. For each section, make a drawing on each pan of the balance to show how power was divided in ancient Rome. The drawings representing groups with more power should be on the weighted or lower pan. So the group who has most power is going to be on which pan? The left one or the right one? The left one. The one that's weighted down has more power. It'll be patrician or plebeian. So, 33.2, patricians and plebeians under the Etruscan rule. So, on the pans, draw and label or mark stick figures to represent an Etruscan king, a patrician, and a plebeian. So how many fingers, show of fingers, how many stick figures are you going to draw? Right here. 3, right? A Etruscan king, a patrician, and a plebeian. So give the characters facial expressions to represent how they might be feeling. Alright? So number 2, who were the patricians? How much power did they have to influence the Etruscan king? Instead of influence, you could say impact. How much power did they have to impact the Etruscan king? Number 3, who were the plebeians? How much power did they have to influence the Etruscan king? Alright, does anyone have any questions about the directions for this one? Yeah.
Why do you have to draw 3 figures? Can't you just draw like a patrician and a plebeian?
Because in number 1 says, on the pans, draw and label stick figures to represent an Etruscan king, 1, a patrician, 2, and a plebeian.
So if you draw a patrician and a king on one of the pans and then a plebeian on the other?
Good. Yes. Because they are similar. The Etruscan king and the patricians were similar. They had power. So go ahead and answer these questions. We'll review them in just a few moments. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Books or not?
Whoa.
Did you write it down? Excellent. Good. That's good. Good job. So you only need 3. Or at least label them. Who is this here? The king? Who else? Why are there 3? Patrician and but they're not all in the same boat. The plebeian will be on this side, right? That makes sense? Because they don't have power, but the patricians, the Etruscan king did. Right here. So who are the patricians? What's up?
People that had a lot of power.
Good. Write it down. Yeah. Can you go put that back?
Are we supposed to do what?
What's that? So here, it says on the pans, these are the pans. So draw stick figures to represent 3 people. A Etruscan king, a patrician, and a plebeian. So who do you think is going to be on the same pan? Which 2? I mean, if you must, but just do a stick figure.
Okay.
So who had more power than which other one? And the patrician. So you can put them on one and then a plebeian on the other. And then it says give facial expressions, like a smile or a frown. See how they like it. Make sure you put facial expressions. The plebeian? Yeah, well, I mean, that's no political power. There's no plebeians don't have any political power. Keep moving. All right, who's still working on these questions? All right, just a few more moments.
Two.
Do you need help? You don't what? You never So they have a lot of power. Yeah, they have enough power to give advice to the king. Like the king, the Etruscan king, could be like, oh, how are things in Rome? They're like, oh, this. They would advise the king to certain ways.
Because they wanted a lot of power in the other
So like our president has a bunch of advisors. So his advisors are called the cabinet, and the cabinet is like the cabinet has members from the Navy, the Army, Department of Agriculture, and they advise him. They're like, what I would do in this position, this is what I would do. He takes their advice and then he makes the decision. Or she should be. But anyway. Yes, yeah, so you should take notes. You should write it down on this paper. All right, so who were the patricians? Who were the patricians under Etruscan rule? Under Etruscan rule. Yeah, Michaela.
The patricians were upper class citizens who were from a small group of wealthy landowners.
Good. And what did they have? What did they act like? They were acted like what? How did they influence the king?
Oh, they influenced the king by giving him advice.
They influenced the king by giving him advice. They acted as advisors. Good. So who were the plebs? Yes, Sarah.
The plebeians were the majority of the population, and they were lower class citizens. And they had very little power to influence the king.
Good. They were lower class citizens, and they were mostly peasants and laborers, right? Just general workers. Or peasants, right? Workers, just general workers. Most people. Whereas the patricians were 5% of the population, and controlled the most valuable lands. What would make land valuable? What would make land more valuable than other land? Yeah.
Maybe if it was in a more expensive area.
But why would it be more expensive though?
Because it would be in like a nicer area, so the qualities would be better and
The qualities of the land would be better. Good. And especially at ancient times. What were we often talking about? Yeah.
Well, in ancient Greece, I'm not sure about if it's the land was really hilly, so it might have been, if it was a piece of flat land, it could have been more valuable.
Good. Because what can you do on flat land?
Grow crops
Right? So valuable land is most likely fertile land, where you can grow good crops and make lots of money by selling your crop. Good. So let's move on to 33.3. The patricians create a republic. So 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. Who would like to read? Only 2 volunteers. I'm gonna start calling on people. All right. I guess the same. It'll be Sarah, Michaela, Alita, and then Anthony. So 33.3.
Over time, the patricians came to resent Etruscan rule. In 509 BCE, a group of patricians rebelled. They drove out the last Etruscan king. In place of a king, they created a republic. In a republic, elected officials worked for the interests of the people.
to the patricians, the people meant the patricians themselves, not the plebeians. But they put most of the power in the hands of the Senate. The Senate was a group of 300 men that the patricians elected. The senators served for life. They also appointed other government officials and served as judges.
2 elected leaders, called consuls, shared command of the army. The Senate was supposed to advise the consuls. In fact, the Senate's decisions were treated as law.
The creation of the republic and Rome were
Good. Only the patricians could participate in that government. Good. So when was the republic created? What year? Kenneth, what year did the republic was created? What year? May, what year was the republic created?
In 509 BCE.
Good. 509 BCE. So about how many years were the Romans under Etruscan rule? About how many years from the previous section? A little over how many years? A little over 100 years. Good. From 616 to 509. So, to the patricians, who were considered the people? To the patricians, who is considered the people? Somebody new. Kim. Who were regarded as the people to the patricians? Yeah, themselves. They saw themselves as the people. They excluded the plebeians, even though they're 5% of the population, right? So, who elected the Senate? Who got to elect the Senate? Admir, who elected the Senate? Who got to vote to elect the Senate? I'm sorry? The what? No, not the consuls. Yeah, May. Patricians got to elect the Senate. And only members of the Senate were patricians. So that doesn't mean all patricians were senators. It's just only senators came from the patrician class. So consuls share command of what government, arm of the government? Which arm of the government? The consuls. What part of the government? Yeah, Alita.
Wait. Can you ask the
Senate, the Senate.
No, the consuls controlled what part of the government?
That was the army.
Army.
The army. Good. So, 33.3. On the pans, draw and label stick figures to represent a patrician and one plebeian. Give it appropriate facial expressions. So the lower pan is the group that has more power. So number 2, what was the balance of political power? So political is like government, right? Political power between patricians and plebeians when the republic was first created. What was the balance? Was it balanced at all?
No.
Was it equal balance, right?
Oh,
So number 3, so write it down. So number 3, why? Underline why. Why was the balance of power between patricians and plebeians unequal? Why was this unequal?